A career in learning and development or organisational development, brought to you by Elephant. This is going to cover the different career paths and the different skills and experience you might need to move into learning and development or OD or take your career to the next step. Hi, I'm Angela Atkins, and I think a learning and development career can be the best. I actually fell into L&D by chance. My career started in HR, and I took over as the HR head for a large retail chain with 50 stores, and we needed a learning program for all of the stores and the warehouse and the support office. It fell onto my shoulders, and I did some training in learning and development and then designed an entire program. And that's where my learning passion took off. And I found I absolutely loved designing learning that was really practical, really useful, and actually delivered, because so much training out there is just not very good. So then in 2006, I co founded Elephant, and our passion was to actually provide practical and useful HR training and delivered by HR people, because I felt with HR, as well as learning and OD and payroll, you need to have worked in the profession to actually teach it. If you haven't dealt with those day-to-day challenges, then you haven't seen what really happens in the real world. So we started with just HR, but things went very well. And I wrote a few books at that time as well, on managing a team, management bites, and employment bites about HR, and training bites around how to design and develop training. And in 2016, we expanded Elephant globally. So moved to the UK and launched over there, and also moved into organisational development, L&D and payroll, because I saw that there was a lack of really practical, useful and fun training out there. We ran workshops, we ran conferences, we trained thousands and thousands of people over the years we've been running Elephant. And my career in learning has taken me around the world. I've met some amazing people. One of my highlights at the top there was interviewing Simon Sinek in our HR Game Changer conference in Melbourne, but also met some really cool other people like Nadia Lim, who came and talked about when she started up My Food Bag, and Derek Handley and Justine Ross, the founder of 42 Below, who came to speak about game changing as well. So I think a learning and development career, if you are either in learning already or OD, or you want to get into it, whether you're in HR or operational roles, it can be so rewarding, and you can really find different components that match your style and the things that you're actually good at. There's so much scope within the career. Now, there is an overlap between OD, L&D and HR. So OD, organisational development, looks at the science and the psychology of people processes, and it looks at them with a long-term view and in terms of the whole organisation. Now, for a long time, OD psychologists, IO psychologists were the ones who actually looked after OD, but more and more HR people and learning and development people are moving into OD. But if in fact the science and the psychology, the academic side of things interests you, then OD may be where you want to sit, because it's more behind the scenes, but it's actually looking at the data and the evidence and putting in place scientifically proven initiatives and programs. HR then often delivers those programs, sometimes for a whole business or sometimes for groups. HR does tend to be more reactive unless you get up to that HR business partner or head of HR role. And it's more practical. So if you actually enjoy being on the ground, dealing with people, advising managers and doing things, then HR can be a better career path for you. But learning and development, develop and run the training that's needed for the programs to succeed. And this might be for individuals, business teams, different divisions, or whole organizations. So in large corporates or large organisations, there's often much more large variety of L&D roles. It can be reactive, so in a lot of companies, it's when training is needed, L&D are called in to source something or put something together. Or in some more proactive organisations, it's more strategic, so it feeds into often the L&D goals feed into the HR strategy or the people strategy. So if you actually enjoy delivering, if you enjoy getting up in front of people, or you enjoy designing, you've got that creative flair, there are also some behind the scenes roles in L&D as well, but that delivery and design aspect might be where you want to sit your career if those are things you enjoy. So when we started Elephant, we developed the HR career map to try and actually show the different uh, paths that you could actually take within HR, coming in at a graduate or entry level. And you could go into an academic stream at the top there, the green stream, or you could go into an operational HR stream, or you could go into a specialist stream. So this could be recruitment, but it could also be training or health and safety or employment relations, REM, metrics, learning and development, or any of those functions managing. So that was, we put as a specialist stream, which I didn't know at the time we would develop into a lot more detail later on. Or you might actually go into operational team management, so becoming a team leader, line manager, or an executive, possibly within having some responsibilities for L&D or HR or OD, but sitting in the people management stream in an operational role instead. And then sometimes those paths do lead to being a CEO. There are more HR people who have become CEOs now, not so much learning or OD, but that may well follow. So what we did then is we plotted out the different roles in learning. And there are three different streams, really. There's operational roles, which are more behind the scenes. There's design roles, and there are delivery roles. And you might work at a base level or move up to intermediate or senior, and then there's senior management roles. Now, to back this up, what we did is we designed the L&D career guide, and you get a copy of this when you register for any of our certificates, and it actually has a whole load of notes about the different roles and the what they're responsible for, what the standards are, and the skills and experience that you might need to do them. So that goes into a lot more detail, but I want to talk about some of the key things here. So if you are looking at an operational role, so if you actually enjoy admin and logistics, then actually learning operational roles might be of interest to you, whether you come from an operational background or HR. The lower level roles are sort of learning coordinator or LMS admin. So often you're dealing with registrations for different courses. You're advising people on the courses that exist out there as you move up into being a learning advisor. And then if you become a learning partner or manager, you're often advising the whole business. You might be helping with training needs analysis and then looking at what's actually available in terms of the learning programs. So it is more advisory, it's behind the scenes, it's more operational, but it really helps, and it's often in much larger companies that these roles exist, but it actually helps learners access what's actually available. So there's a bit of curation in there because when you are in a large organisation and there are a lot of learning programs, employees and managers can find it a little bit overwhelming. So if you enjoy that sort of logistics, organisational part of things and helping people find the right options for them, almost a little bit of coaching, then this might be the right career path for you. So you will need good organisational time management and also being able to manage multiple deadlines and streams. So there may be a lot of different things going on, courses running at different times that you need to be on top of, and who's going where, and if you've got different venues or different online Zoom rooms happening. So logistics is a key skill. Accuracy and attention to detail. So you need to be really good at knowing which courses are happening when and who's on what, and also that the contents are all correct. So sometimes, I'll talk about design roles in a moment, some of the contents might not be as specific as needed, or there might be typos or mistakes. So making sure everything that's on your LMS is correct, and that the processes are working as well, and good communication skills so you can let people know what's happening when, and dealing with queries about different courses. Then you've got your design roles. So if you've got a more creative flair, if you actually enjoy visuals and designing things, then this may be a career stream for you within L&D. And at a base level, you've got graphic or visual designers. So these roles are actually putting the visuals together for workshop slides or handouts or e-learning modules. So if you have got that creative flair that you enjoy, then training as a graphic designer and actually doing graphic design for learning. Obviously, there's graphic design roles in marketing and comms and various other industries, but for learning, it's quite interesting because you're often working within branding guidelines, but also trying to make the content really engaging and interesting and look like your organisation. Or a full e-learning programmer. So if you've got that technical side, a lot of LMSs now, the learning platforms are quite easy to use. You upload videos and quizzes and they can be very quick to build e-learning, but there are still organisations using more complex LMSs where you need to actually know the programming language to be able to design the modules. So there is still a technical role there. Then you've got, as you move into intermediate, instructional design roles. So this is where you actually design learning. And at a lower level, technical training is often designing manuals or training for systems or processes is slightly more simple than as you move up into more senior instructional design roles where you're designing things like management training or leadership training, where there's a lot more streams of different levels of people. You've got facilitated workshops, you've got to design discussions and exercises and on-the-job components. So those become a lot more complex and they're a more senior level type role. Or you might move into learning experience where you're actually designing an entire learning experience for a learner in your organisation. So it's part of the whole L&D program, but there's often components of how they access learning, how assessments are going to be built in, learning pathways. So that becomes a lot more senior role. So if you've got that creative, that design aspect to what you enjoy, that could be a great career stream. And the skills you need there are creativity and innovation. So you do need to be able to think outside the box. And we have got different generations in the workplace now who learn differently and have grown up completely different, accessing learning completely differently. So the innovation and actually being able to think of different channels and different ways to create learning agility. So being able to pick up new systems very quickly. It's no use going, oh, I don't know about TikTok. I don't know how that works. You've got to be able to get on there, learn it. And is that going to be a stream that you can actually use for your young graduates coming in, for example? Technical knowledge, actually being able to learn the systems that you're going to have to be able to use. Then you've got your delivery roles. So if you love actually getting up in front of people and training them, then this is the stream for you. At a base level, your first level role as a trainer is a technical trainer. So this is where you're training people on processes or systems or products. It's less complicated. You're often actually showing people how to use a system. It can be individual, one-on-one, whether in person or virtually, but it's a lot simpler in terms of this is how this works and making sure there might be exercises and things that people need to do, but it's fairly simple. Then you move up to intermediate level. This is where you might have to facilitate. So this is where things aren't quite as clear cut. It might be management training or leadership training or soft skills training, and you need to facilitate discussions and exercises. So you have to learn skills around keeping people under control and making sure discussions are going in the right way and that the exercises are actually bringing out the learnings that the instructional designer has put in there for you to try and make sure you facilitate. And then at a more senior level, in terms of delivery, is a training manager role where you might still be running training yourself and facilitating, but you've also got whole programs. So you may also be running sessions about what the training paths are and what the learning pathways, as well as actually running the program. So you may have a team in that type level. of role. So in terms of the delivery skills for being a trainer or a facilitator, you've got to be a problem solver, because when you're training people, issues come up. You've got to be able to solve them, whether it's a system or technical issues or people conflicts within the group that you need to resolve. You've got to be adaptable. So you've got to be able to train different audiences and be able to gel with people at all levels and from all industries. Team dynamics, you've got to understand what's happening if you're training. It's harder virtually because you miss some of those clues if everyone hasn't got their camera on. But you need to understand why the dynamics are happening really quickly when you're training a group of people. You need advanced communication and coaching skills. So you're going to have to diffuse situations. You're going to have to try and make people laugh. You're going to have to overcome when people are anxious or nervous, or they get something wrong and they get upset, or issues come out sometimes in learning that don't come out. Even in my HR career, I would be talking to managers regularly. I would then facilitate training programs for that same group of managers, and completely different things come out when you're running training, and a lot of issues. So you need to be able to coach and communicate and diffuse and influence and persuade, and a whole load of different skills there. And you need persistence and resilience. So if you are trying to make sure that you're effective as a trainer or a facilitator and that people are getting the learnings they need, you sometimes have to keep labouring a point. You have to be resilient in terms of the energy. You're always having to be more energetic than your learners to actually keep them engaged. So there's a whole load of skills around that as well. But that L&D career guide does go into more detail. And then you might move up to senior management or leadership roles. So there might be, in larger organisations, a learning director or a head of learning. And then OD often sits more at that strategic senior level. So it might be in the senior stream, or it might be a more senior management level. And you will need things like strategic thinking, analysis and analytical thinking, or managing change. So we mapped out all of those L&D roles. The OD roles are still developing. So in a lot of companies, there's a base level OD advisor. There might be an intermediate or senior OD partner, and then there may be a head of OD. But those roles are still a little bit less defined, as OD moves from being that purely scientific IO psychologist coming in to actually being roles within large organisations. But how we support you in those different streams is we have 2 learning certificates. So our certificate in learning fundamentals is if you're looking at how do you design and deliver training. So you might be new to L&D or not have very much experience in L&D, and you want to learn how do you design and deliver training. The certificate in strategic L&D is more around the learning measurement and learning programs and building a learning culture. So it's at that more senior learning partner level. And then we have our certificate in organisational development, which is a little bit more flexible because OD isn't as well developed as L&D or HR in many organisations. So if you're moving into OD, or you're in an HR strategic role and you're going to be taking on some OD responsibilities, or you're an L&D person and wanting to move more into OD, then the OD certificate covers the key areas of OD and has some flexibility when you complete your assignments in terms of what level you're actually at, whether you've got experience in that particular area or not. And there's some different case studies if you're at a beginner level versus a little more experienced level. So there's information about all of our certificates and our programs at elephanthrtraining.com. But I hope this session has given you something to think about in terms of where is your career at the moment? What are the things you enjoy and do you think you're good at? And where might those sit if you're looking at getting into an L&D and OD career?